Be now put.
No. I'll call the honourable member Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's always a great pleasure, of course, not only to take a call on an important piece of legislation as this, but to do so under your chairpersonship, because this House needs a good and steady hand when it is considering erosions and invasions into the personal security and privacy of its citizens. This legislation is very important legislation, and which is why it is such a surprise to members on this side of the House that not a single member tonight, apart from one contribution from the Minister and the Chair earlier, has seen fit to take a call on this fundamentally important piece of legislation. It marks, Mr Chairman, a continuing process we have seen under this government, unfortunately, of diminishing and eroding important citizens' rights. The inherent right to privacy, the inherent right to be protected from the invasion into our personal space and to our personal information, at the very least by the state, because we know the state is very powerful. And of course the powers in this part, in Part 3 of the Telecommunications Interception Capability and Security Bill, aren't of course just about private citizens' rights and privacy, but also of the telecommunication companies to whom citizens subscribe for their telecommunication services. And Mr Chairman, when you look at the obligation, for example, in Clause 45, that imposes, in my view, disingenuously, a duty to engage in good faith with the Director of the GCSB, with no corresponding duty on the Director, it tells you what this government is about. A lack of balance, a lack of understanding of the importance of citizens' rights, and growing, almost total power of the state over the citizen in important areas. You know, there would be members of the Stasi, there'd be members of the old Soviet Union Politburo, many of whom looked a lot like Tim McIndoe, funnily enough, who would be proud of the powers in this legislation. They would be very pleased about what's being achieved here. And we all thought after 1990 that those evil, vicious days have gone. Well, they've been resurrected. They've come to life under the New Zealand National Government 2008 to 2014. Fortunately, we know it's all coming to an end. But, Mr Chairman, I get off the point just for a moment. The powers contained in Part 3 of this bill are invasive, and there are no corresponding duties on the Director of the GCSB when considering his right, because it, as Marion Street pointed out, the Director of the GCSB is a his at the moment. No corresponding duties on the Director of the GCSB in the way he conducts himself and these powers. There is a broad definition of network operator, because it's not just the telecommunications company, it's anybody who supplies to them. There is a broad definition of security interest, and it includes aggregated information about subscribers and users. That is frightful. Just when we thought we got this government understood, actually, there are serious issues about access to aggregated information under the GCSB bill. Here we have it yet again in this piece of legislation. And we have the Henry VIII power still contained in Clause 46, Subclause 2, that allows a change to parts of Subclause 1 of Clause 46, which ought to be regarded as unusual and indeed extraordinary. Then we come to Clause 47 and the extraordinary powers of the Director to not only know about what telecommunications companies are doing, but to direct them. And then if the Director of the GCSB is not happy with them, then to go through this sort of telling on the teacher on you process if they're not satisfied with the information being provided by the telecommunications provider. And even with the supplementary order paper providing this chimera of a check and balance by going via the chap who's in charge of the warrants, Inspector of Warrants, is it? Commissioner of Security Warrants, before going to the Minister, that is no check and balance on this power at all. And it just confirms yet again the extraordinary and insidious powers that this government is reserving for itself. And Mr. Chairman,
I call the honourable member Ian McKelvey.
I move that the question be now put.
No. I'm going to call the honourable member Andrew